Let's think about the absolute pinnacle of luxury. When you picture elite, exclusive, uncompromising speed and wealth, what comes to mind? For almost all of us, it's a sleek, red sports car. But there's this massive, almost unbelievable irony behind the most prestigious luxury brand in the world. Today, we're unraveling how a global symbol of the ultra-rich was actually forged in the fires of a totally different world. Get this, the name Ferrari actually translates to blacksmith. Seriously, it's one of the most common surnames in all of Italy. It's literally the Italian equivalent of the name Smith. So right off the bat, you know this isn't your typical sanitized corporate history. This is a gritty, remarkable tale of a blue-collar, working-class name fighting its way to the absolute peak of automotive exclusivity. Part 1. The Blacksmith's Racing Dream. To really understand the brand, we first have to understand the man, and Enzo Ferrari's tragic beginnings perfectly set the stage for his lifelong resilience. Enzo's early life was marked by devastating loss. He grew up helping his dad, Alfredo, a metal worker who ran a small workshop just outside Modena. But when World War I broke out, his father and older brother were drafted, and tragically both died in a 1916 flu epidemic. Just like that, the family business died with them. By 1918, Enzo himself was drafted as a military blacksmith, but got discharged pretty quickly due to severe poor health. So he hits rock bottom. He's unemployed, grieving, and totally desperate. But he manages to take a job driving refurbished military chassis, which finally gets him a foot in the door of the racing world. And it clicks. By 1919, he places fourth in his very first hill climb race. Then, in 1923, he pulls off this shocking victory at the fiercely competitive Circuito del Savio in Ravenna. Part 2. Building the Prancing Horse. That single victory changed his trajectory forever, leading to the mythological origins of the brand's iconic logo and Enzo's first taste of true independence. There is a massive, massive weight of history behind the Ferrari emblem. At that 1923 race, Enzo's driving really impressed Count and Countess Baracca. They invite him to their mansion and share the story of their late son, Francesco. Francesco was Italy's top-scoring World War I fighter ace with 34 aerial victories, and his plane bore a fearsome emblem, a black prancing horse on a white background. The Countess was so taken with Enzo's skill that she actually gifted him her national hero's son's emblem. It's incredible, right? Enzo kept the black horse but changed the background to a vibrant yellow, which happens to be the official color of his beloved hometown of Modena. And just like that, this became the banner for his 1929 Alfa Romeo racing team, Scuderia Ferrari. But here's the thing about Enzo. He wasn't meant to work for someone else forever. In 1939, Alfa Romeo wanted to absorb his team. Enzo walks away, but he gets slapped with a massive roadblock, a 4-year non-compete clause. Undeterred, he quietly forms a new company, Auto Avio Costruzione, and manages to build the AAC 815 in 1940. Then, World War II brings absolute devastation. Allied bombings completely destroy his factory. Yet Enzo's resilience shines through again. He rebuilds by 1946. And this is so brilliant. Being restricted by a non-compete and bombed in a global war actually served as the ultimate catalyst for him. In 1947, he launches the Ferrari 125S. Rather than using standard, off-the-shelf components, he has his engineers develop their own custom V-shaped engine with 12 cylinders. Boom! The legendary Ferrari V12 was born. That relentless innovation paid off huge on the track. By the early 1950s, Ferrari enters Formula One. Just to briefly clarify how this works, since F1 actually has 2 championships. Think of the Drivers' Championship kind of like an MVP award in sports. Points go to the individual driver based on where they finish. The Constructors' Championship, on the other hand, is like the team winning the Super Bowl. It's the combined points of the team's 2 fielded cars. Well, Ferrari absolutely dominated early on. In 1952, driver Alberto Ascari claimed the driver's title for Ferrari, and then he did it again in 1953, becoming the very first driver in F1 history to win multiple titles in a row. Part 3. Tragedy and the Great Walkout. Unchecked ambition often breeds internal friction, right? And we are now entering arguably the darkest, yet most pivotal turning point in Ferrari's history. By the early 1960s, things were incredibly tense. Over the span of just 2 years, 4 Ferrari drivers had died. Morale was at absolute rock bottom. Inside the company, senior staff were deeply frustrated with Enzo's decision to heavily involve his wife, Laura, in management. She was famously outspoken and clashed a lot with the team. So sales manager Girolamo Gardini gathers 8 other senior colleagues and presents Enzo with a strict ultimatum: fire Laura. Enzo's response: no way. He ruthlessly fires all 9 of the executives on the spot. This absolute corporate purge stripped the company of its most experienced senior talent overnight in what famously became known as the Great Walkout. But here is where Enzo's cunning truly shines. He replaces those ousted veterans with a crew of hungry, young engineers. Their first major task? Design the Ferrari 250 GTO. Now, the International Racing Federation had some pretty strict rules at the time. To race this car, you had to build at least 100 of them. Well, Enzo didn't have the time or the resources for that, so he cheated. He literally numbered the chassis out of sequence. When inspectors came around to verify the count, he would secretly shuffle the exact same cars to different locations. He completely tricked the inspectors, got the car approved with only 39 ever built, and that very car, the 250 GTO, went on to win the World Sports Car Championship 3 years in a row. And just to put into perspective how legendary that specific cheated-into-existence car became, in 2014, one of those original 39 Ferrari 250 GTOs sold at a California auction for a mind-blowing $38 million. Yeah, $38 million. Part 4. The Fiat deal and Dino. Demand for the cars exploded, but rapid expansion requires massive capital. And Enzo was about to face a major financial shift alongside a profound personal tragedy. Enzo wanted to create a more affordable sports car, but he didn't want to dilute the ultra-exclusive Ferrari name, so he creates a sub-brand. He names it Dino, which was a heartfelt tribute to his firstborn son, Alfredo. Alfredo had actually been working on developing a new V6 engine for the company when he was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. Tragically, he passed away at the age of just 25. Enzo was absolutely shattered, but he channeled that immense grief into finishing his son's work, ensuring that the Dino 206 GT and 246 GT models were powered by the very V6 engine his son had helped design. The crucial point here is that Ferrari has always existed right at the intersection of tragedy and triumph, and this was never more apparent than in the 1980s. In 1982, the racing world is rocked by the death of the wildly popular Ferrari driver Gilles Villeneuve. Yet, fast forward just 2 years later, and Ferrari explodes into mainstream pop culture with the Testarossa, cementing its iconic status on the TV show Miami Vice. Then, in 1987, the F40 launches, which was actually the final car personally approved by Enzo himself. When Enzo passed away the following year, the market went absolutely chaotic. Speculators drove F40 prices to quadruple their value overnight, treating the cars like museum pieces rather than actual machines. Literally, barely 10% of them were actually being driven. Enzo's passing also triggered a major ownership shift. Now, to secure expansion capital back in the late 60s, Enzo had already sold 50% of the company to the Italian auto giant Fiat. After Enzo died, his surviving son, Piero, inherited the other half. Piero promptly sold 40% of his stake to Fiat. This left Fiat with a massive 90% control of the entire company, while Piero retained a 10% legacy stake. Part 5. The Schumacher Resurgence. Despite all the financial maneuvering, the racing team itself had really lost its way. It was time for a comeback story after a brutally long 20-year slump. Let's look at the shape Ferrari was in by the mid-90s. It wasn't pretty. They hadn't won a driver's championship since 1979. Their heavier V12 engines were getting completely outpaced by lighter V10s, and their pit stop crew, they were literally a running joke in the industry. So what was the fix? Uncompromising financial firepower. Under new general manager Jean Todt, Ferrari simply threw massive amounts of money at the problem. They signed racing prodigy Michael Schumacher for an astronomical $60 million on a 2-year contract. This philosophy of aggressively outbidding rivals for elite talent became a huge staple for them. I mean, fast forward to 2016, and they were paying driver Sebastian Vettel $50 million a year. And man, did that investment pay off in spectacular fashion. Schumacher defeated his rivals in 2000 to win Ferrari's first title in 20 years. He then goes on to win 4 more drivers' championships in a row. His dominance was just absolutely unprecedented. In the 2002 season alone, he led the championship by a staggering 67 points. He completely restored the brand to its rightful place at the absolute top of the global racing scene. Part 6. An independent global icon. This track dominance translated directly back to the streets, setting up Ferrari's transition into a massive, modern public entity. The pinnacle of their modern engineering arrived in 2013 with a car simply named La Ferrari. It was designed to be the definitive Ferrari sports car. Building on the amazing F-140 V12 engine technology that debuted in the early 2000s, this masterpiece carried a price tag of $1.4 million. And, true to their legacy of extreme exclusivity, only 499 units were originally built. They only broke that rule once, to build a special 500th unit, which was auctioned off entirely to aid the victims of a devastating 2016 earthquake in central Italy. That same year brought the biggest corporate shakeup in their history. On January 3, 2016, Fiat officially took Ferrari public. You see, Fiat needed massive capital to reinvigorate their other brands like Jeep and Alfa Romeo. Initially, investors were pretty skeptical of the spinoff. But Ferrari had a secret weapon. Even while owned by Fiat, they had always maintained complete operational autonomy. This independence shielded them from the friction that usually destroys companies during a public spinoff. They seamlessly moved forward, immediately preparing 350 highly sought-after special edition cars to celebrate their 70th anniversary. Which brings us to a really fascinating crossroads. We've seen how this brand fought through war, tragedy, internal mutiny, and corporate buyouts, always driven by one man's relentless obsession with speed. But as we look at the modern landscape, you have to ask yourself, can a